Start. Welcome to a new show that we have called the Spiritual Science Roundtable. And my co-host Glen Rein here is going to be moving forward with this. Instead of on Tuesday nights having a solo show, he's going to be doing this with myself on Thursdays. And he's invited a good friend onto the show tonight. Al, thank you for coming on.
No problem.
So this is actually, thank you. So this is actually my first time meeting you. So give us some background on, so I'm curious, like, why is it that Glenn chose you to at this meeting point of spirituality and science?
That's a good question.
We're friends.
Well, yeah, we're friends. I've been a member of Psychotronics Association for 30 years. I'm an electrical engineer. And years ago, I used to go to the library and read books on psychic powers and pyramids and things like that, always wondering if they were real, So I wanted to go to a place where I could meet people who actually knew these things and possibly even get a job, working with them in this field. So I found Psychotronics, and then from there I found all those other organizations that were around in the 80s and 90s. And but we're still here, so that's my story.
Yeah, how has the developmental process been, the sort of iteration of Psychotronics over the last 40 years? So did you say you kind of got into it in the 80s? Is that what you were saying? It's for you, Al. I'm curious. Like, what have you seen in the development of this field?
Well, let's see. What have I seen in development?
Is it following Moore's law?
Not really. It's
non-linear.
I don't think there's been a lot of advances in electronics, but basically what we're talking about is basic human, psychic powers and intuition, which hasn't changed, since the human race was formed. So all we've been trying to do is get it out to the public better, and it's hard to do because people have a hard time understanding. Here's a funny story. The first Psychotronic conference I went to live, I was still in the hotel, and I put my badge on that said United States Psychotronics, and the people in the hotel looked at me and said, "You're the guys who make the electric chairs, aren't you?" So people have no clue unless we explain it to them what it's all about and how we're not out to hurt anybody. We have a strict code of ethics which we follow, and but it's what I've seen over the years is it's amazing what can be done with your intention and a little device, and farm fields and human beings, animals, they're all affected by our thoughts and intentions if we focus them properly.
So my answer to that is, yeah, we explained it to them and they still don't get it. Because the little magic black box that Al's talking about is a bit of a mystery and cannot be explained by conventional science, and is dependent on the operator, dependent on the consciousness of the operator. And we have spent the last 40 years trying to understand the nature of the energies that are involved, A, with the box, and B, with the mind and consciousness. And 40 years later, yeah, I guess we have more theories. I guess we have more experimental data to support the phenomena. When they started in the 80s, there was agricultural data, I'm sure, way back then. But there wasn't a lot of biomedical data, and we still really don't know. Al called it a black box. Yes, absolutely right. We still don't know how it works. But we could talk about that for the next hour. That's a whole topic in itself, the kind of energies that are involved and how they're generated and what kind of healing effects they have, if you like.
Does this black box have a name?
Radionics device.
Okay.
of which there are many different versions.
I would call it a tuner. It's basically a tuner, but it tunes a type of energy that I have not been able to measure with any instrument except the human mind.
Well, that doesn't exactly measure, but yeah, right.
Perceive.
And go ahead.
No, that's all.
Oh,
Is this
so
is this
how
a
do you
box
think
that
it-
you
how do you think it
invented or?
works?
no. Galmore, who are the early pioneers in the radio field of radionics? Delaware had this amazing camera. She could take pictures of people, take people's blood, and take pictures of the fetus. Just by taking a picture of the blood, because the energy of the fetus was in the blood, and the machine. Hieronymus. Yeah, these are the pioneers. Kelly, the people that were around in the 80s, and their technology still stands. It may have been tweaked a little bit, but it's still basically the same technology. And in answer to what Al just said, yeah, you can't measure it with electronic equipment. So therefore, as a biologist, the way I measure it is its biological effect. And that's where I developed various bioassays, notably DNA and changes in water that allow us to measure not the energy, but the effect the energy has on these systems.
So what do you think? What kind of energy this is, Glenn?
Well, we call it scalar energy.
Okay.
Because of who started that word? Al, was it Tom Bearden?
I don't know who started it. Bearden's usually credited with the word scalar.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because Gallimore talked about it way back then, but I'm not sure what words he used to describe it.
Okay. Well, Hieronymus used L-optic energy. L-optic
energy.
Yeah.
Right. And it has various bizarre names like that. L fields was one of them. And I guess if we rattle our brains, we could come up with other names. And then Tom Bearden came along and really tried to make it all rigorously scientific. And he introduced the idea of a scalar wave, which is the wave that you generate when you take two ordinary electromagnetic fields, oppose them 180 degrees, they cancel, and this subtle underlying energy is allowed to express itself.
This is the use of a Mobius coil.
That would be one way to do it. Al probably has a different definition of scalar.
Well, Tom Bearden's definition is two waves traveling in opposite direction, but one going forward in time, the other backwards in time. So it's not enough to be out of phase in space. He claims that they have to be going forward and backwards in time. So if that's true or not, I don't know.
Well, because I don't do it that way. I just take two ordinary electromagnetic fields and oppose them, and they cancel. But Bearden made the point that it's more than it's canceling. They have to buck. They have to hit each other like that. And that's kind of part of the new technology that we now know how to generate this kind of energy. You could talk more about that, Al, with a fast rise time. And, it's not a gentle, gradual thing. You really have to bang the system in order to get it. It's probably not a technical word to generate a scalar wave.
Well, hey guys, before we go too far down this rabbit hole, can you just give us a basic definition of radionics and a basic definition of psychotronics?
Radionics, well, I'll try. Radionics and psychotronics are synonymous as far as I know. The word psychic, it's psycho and psychological is in there because the mind is required to generate this kind of energy. But the basic definition is the ability of this kind of subtle energy to facilitate the actions of and enhance the actions of the mind to produce biological and physical effects on matter, on physical matter and biological matter. How would you answer that question, Al?
Absolutely, mind matter interaction. One might even call it, if you've heard of remote viewing, where you can psychically see something from a distance or through time, there's the opposite, remote influencing, where your intention is actually causing something to happen in matter somewhere else in space and time. And I would say it's a combination of both.
And the box is an amplifier of this intention?
Well, amplifier, I call it a tuner because when you use it, you have to set a whole bunch of dials and tune in to, it's like if you ever operate a ham radio, you have a box that has to match the antenna to the amplifier. Once that's matched perfectly, you get good transmission and reception. That's kind of what this is. It's
customized per person. Yeah. So it's going to tune differently to you, Al, than it would to Glenn or to me or anybody else, but within probably a relatively narrow band.
Yeah. And however, there are settings, which we call either tunings or rates, that are fixed for certain materials or substances. And that, should stay about the same, but you're right. Each person has to match themselves to whatever they're trying to influence.
In other words, another way to put that is that there is resonance, that is the key word, three-way resonance between the practitioner, the target, and the device. And you have to get all three of them on the same page or same wavelength, if you want to look at it that way, in order for there to be information transfer between the three parties involved. And when that happens, then the energy of the intention of the practitioner will resonate with the target and cause some kind of an effect.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Is that a difficult process, the tuning process?
Yeah, it requires intuition and requires a bit of psychic ability, because we're working, it's like, like if you say to somebody, visualize the energy of the sun radiating from the sun and going into your crown chakra and down the spinal cord and radiating throughout your body. Okay, well, some people can do that quite well, and other people go like, what? I can't do that. So it's a skill. And, for what it's worth, there's different ways that you can tune the device. And one is with a plate, a touch plate. So you kind of rub your finger over it. And when there is resonance between these three systems, then you get what's called stick. And then you go, oh, okay, that's the conditions where with the three individual things resonate. Well, I've been doing this for 30 years as well, and I cannot get stick. But I can find the resonance conditions using a pendulum. Because for me, my pendulum works very fine, thank you, and accurate and reproducible. I can't get it to work with this thing with the fingers, on the plate. But that's why it's individual and there's a skill involved.
And of course, there's dowsing rods as well, which most people are familiar with.
Right, that's another way to do it.
I'll never forget. I'm watching. We all know the home builder guy, Bob Vila.
Yep.
Heard him? Okay, so he's a popular, guy. And I just happened to turn on one of his shows. I never watch it. He says, we're gonna build a cabin in the woods, and we have to dig a well. So it's standard practice to bring in a dowser, so we know where to put the drill, because it costs so much money to bring this rig in and start digging in the wrong place. You can't do that. So that shocked me. They said it's standard practice. You have to bring in a dowser, which is a psychic person. That's the only way they find water.